We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
No, can you hear me? A pleasant good evening to you. Once again, we're back on the Real Talk with lovely, lavish Lavi right down here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You're listening to 98.9 WIN FM. Good evening to you, St. Kitts and Nevis. Tonight, we are going to be talking about how culture and relationships affect our mental health. And hey, on demand, we are bringing back none other than Charlene Gumbs down there in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And she's going to be joining us via Zoom. Tonight, we also have in the studios with us, hey, I can't believe this little grassroots show going like this, you know. We have big deals in here. We have the president of the association, Journalists Association, Mr. Andre Huey. And we also have my co-host, Mr. Jacent, and he's out of Newtown, and he's in the house. So ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, I just got to let you guys know that I really feel in the vibes. I think that you guys know that this is a big deal, and this is why you guys are out there calling Lavi. Lavi, what time the show coming on? Lavi, listen, I feel wonderful. You guys know who you are. We can't call everybody, but I just want to say a pleasant good evening to the entire Caribbean, a pleasant good evening to the diasporas, the diaspora, wherever you are. Once again, we are back, and tonight we have all the professionals in here. A pleasant good evening. Andre?
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good evening. Mabo once here again, saying good night to each and everyone under the sound of my voice.
Nice. Hi, Shirley. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Girl, I'm good, but I just can't tell you how much you're a big deal, girl. You're on demand. People want Shirley back.
That means the conversation is worth it, so that's a good thing.
Yes. And this whole Zoom, I feel like it's a big deal, and I think that, I want to be able to use it some more, because if we can't get people, matter of fact, we should not even say we can't, but we should not limit anyone from wherever they are. What do you think about that, Andre?
No, I agree, and technology has made it easier for us to connect. And you know what? Thanks to COVID, because I think some people didn't realize Zoom existed until COVID.
Yes.
I think one good thing you could say about what COVID brought is that it allows us to be more connected with each other using the technology that's available. So
especially for schoolwork.
Yeah, yeah, school and work.
It played a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
For real, speaking about COVID and the Zoom, I also had to do some training on Zoom. So I am so happy when COVID came. I feel like I was not here in St. Kitts and I was in Florida. And Florida was one of those kind of state that we get to do what we want to do, So it was not as limited, even though the COVID was out, we were still moving about and everything. So by the time, like, it's really, when I came down to St. Kitts, I wasn't in that fear, like the way how people think that, you look on the TV, you look on the news. And this is why it's very important, Andre, for, to do research. And sometimes, nobody wants to dead. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we all going to die. And I feel like sometimes we need to be a little more optimistic and basically not just put up your hand and give up or just be scared, You got to do your research and find out how you can beat this thing. And this is what Real Talk is about. It's for grassroots. And because I am a grassroots, along with you guys, I feel like I'm a lioness. You see my attire tonight?
Yeah, I realize it. As I come in the door.
Yes. Andre, do you have anything to say before we bring in the specialist?
Well, I was just gonna let everybody chime in, and then I'll offer my take on the topic tonight. Especially seeing that I wasn't here last week, so I tuned in a little bit. I didn't get a chance to tune in,
Right?
but I listened a little bit of it.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, on demand we have Charlene. I don't know. Charlene Gumbs is her real name, professional name, but me gonna call her Shelly, and the audience is gonna call her Shelly. Shelly, welcome back on another edition of Real Talk.
Thank you, ma'am. It's nice to be back. The conversation obviously was something that was needed, or else you wouldn't have called me back, because I'm pretty sure you have a lot of people that are in St. Kitts that can bring a lot of information. But, one of the issues that we have, especially in the Caribbean, not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but the diaspora as a whole, is that we tend to not talk about things that are important to us, especially when it comes to emotion and mental health and stuff like that. There's a stigma around it. And so it's a conversation that's very, very comfortable for me. And the reason why is that I know that if we don't deal with our mental health, we don't become whole people, right? And so, wanting to become whole people is an important thing. A lot of us, we're stuck in emotional stagnation, so we're not able to move forward. And so we don't look at how culture plays a role in that. We don't look at how, our relationships plays a role in that. We don't look at how we relate to people, what we think a relationship is supposed to be, what the relationship roles are supposed to be, and not just intimate partner, but with everybody, right? We don't pay attention to those things and the things that we become afraid to say because of what has been taught to us. And so the reset of our minds is necessary. It's not to say that things were wrong before, but it's just that you do what you know based on the information that you have, right? And we make decisions based on information processed, not on the things that we know. We know a lot of things, but we can't apply it. And so it's to get it to the application and not being afraid to get it to the application that's important. So I'm really glad that we're having the conversation, or continuing the conversation, I should say, and getting to that place where we can be a little bit more free, and I'm glad also that, you have, sounds like you have two men in the studio with you tonight, because one of the things that we don't talk about is men and their emotional health, and the ways that they cover up having to hide their emotions and not be emotional because we'll call them weak if they do that, which is not true. It's definitely not true. A man is not weak if he has emotions. He's recognizing that he's human. And if he doesn't have emotions, the way he has a relationship is going to be very, very difficult. Because, culture says that the only emotions that our young boys are supposed to have is anger and fear, which then leaves us as women in a bad situation because, they don't know how to be kind and loving because they weren't taught that emotion or they weren't allowed to have that emotion. We tell little boys from 2, what are you crying for? What are you crying for? You're supposed to be a boy. What are you crying for? Right? Well, everybody has emotions, and walking away from that doesn't, and not expressing that emotion doesn't mean that the emotion goes away. And so that leads to a lot of other problems, you know. So we wonder why we have angry men or men that are not sensitive when they're in a relationship with somebody else. I mean, like, those are the things that culture has kind of put in place. And so, you know, undoing some of the damage is important. You know what I mean? Not that they intended for it to happen. Well, the slave masters did intend for it to happen. That's why that happened. But you know, I'm pretty sure they didn't want to continue it. And so I'm glad we're having the conversation tonight.
Thank you so much for even, coming back to back. I'm sure you have a lot of things to do, and I'm just so happy that, this is what you actually, I would say, in terms of being a part of the change in this world and, in your community and also in St. Kitts and Nevis, where you definitely have your roots, in St. Kitts and Nevis. So with that, we truly appreciate you. Andrew, what do you think about what Shirley has said?
No, it's a very, very important subject she touched on, and a very timely one too, because she's right. I think generally men all over the world, but especially in the Caribbean, we've been taught, even as a young age, boys don't cry, men don't males don't cry. And I was watching a commentary from a well-known media professional in Jamaica recently, and he was talking on that same subject. He's expressing the same thing, that men don't cry. He recently suffered the loss of his mom, and he was talking about when they went to the funeral, and he tried to remain strong for himself and for the family. And there was a time when he got emotional and he did cry a bit, but you could see that he was trying to, and based on what he was saying, he was trying to suppress the sorrow that he was going through. Yes, he missed his mother and he had acknowledged that and whatever, but he didn't want to cry. He didn't want to display any outward expression of
Be the
of
supportive
sorrow.
one.
Right. He wanted to be the strong one for his rest of his siblings and everything else. But the comment made earlier is so right. As men, we do need to express ourselves, and crying is one of those. It's not unmanly, for lack of a better word, to cry.
That is true.
It's not. And in fact, you will find too, and just to support her point, that when you analyze, and I'm not a doctor or psychologist by no means, but just from even simple research, you will find that a lot of the men who get involved in crime, especially violent crime, are men who over the years have a lot of issues and have never had an outlet to express those issues. So they take out those issues, and a lot of times it starts even before it gets to the point of humans, of attacking another human. It starts with animals, how you treat animals.
Yeah.
To begin with, dogs especially. If you're cruel to the animals in such a way, then it means then that it can escalate. It's just a matter of time before you take it to another level. And that's because you did not have an outlet in which you could express yourself, because you were always taught that, men don't cry, boys don't cry.
Partner it up, suck it in.
Suck it in and keep it in. When really and truly, you do need an avenue to express yourself, and express sorrow, because sorrow is an emotion, happiness is an emotion, and it depends on what avenue is available to you for you to express that. So we know, okay, when you're happy, there are activities that you do to express happiness. But what do you do to express sorrow? If a woman is allowed to cry, what does a man do when they have sorrow to express?
Both human beings.
Exactly. So I think it's a very good point.
Shelley,
Mm-hmm.
I feel tonight I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen. So please
You
continue.
did that last week.
Well, well, tonight I am surrounded, and I'm surrounded by inclusion. And as you know, this is what Women's History Month.
It is.
And I feel that I have reached to a stage where I'm understanding the power of a woman. And the power of a woman is not just looking cute, but is to be doing exactly what we're doing here, is to be big sisters, we've been there, done that, and being able to share back the knowledge, share back our experience, not compelling anyone what to do, but basically bringing the awareness. And tonight I have you, Shalene Gumbs, a crisis counselor down there in the Virgin Islands. When it comes to real talk, what else can we ask for Shalene to have someone of your high professional knowledge?
Well, the thing about it is, a lot of times Professional is a term given to somebody who's been doing it for a long time, and I've been doing it for a long time. But we learn best from each other and from, looking at where we are. And so that's one of the reasons why I tend to opt to remain true to myself, period, because I really can't do anything else. And in order for me to be true to me, I have to remember that everything around me, it has to be reality. And that is something that I encourage people to do. I mean, I've been counseling for 30 years. And so one of the reasons why I've been counseling is for 30 years is because a lot of the stuff that they taught me in school doesn't apply to the Caribbean.
That is so true. That is so true.
Our our culture is so far removed in a lot of ways, even from the Black American culture, because of the kind of a diaspora that we have. We're small islands spread out over 36 different islands that all come together, and we all have similar bases, but we still all have so many differences between us, right? Which is why we're spread out the way we are. And, each of us have a different accent. And I guess that should have been the first giveaway, that we all operate differently, is that we have a different accent, right? And so some of us get lost because, I grew up a lot of places, so I don't really have an accent, depending on who I'm talking to. That's the accent that come out, right? Because we code switch, even in the Caribbean, depending on who we're talking to, because it gives us a sense of being able to connect, the connectivity. And language is something that, language and food, but we're not going to talk about food tonight. But language and food is the thing that connects us most, right? But in terms of who we are as people, a lot of times that becomes the problem, is that we want to talk about some things, but we don't want to talk about the other things, right? And this is Women's History Month. And, I'm very big on us helping women to become better women, because if we help women to become better women, usually they're not as great as they can be because they don't have the information. But if we can disperse some information so that they can have some information to help to improve themselves, then it makes the world a better place. Not only that, we stop judging men based on the imaginary man that we have in our head. A lot of us live in Disneyland, don't ask me why. But, the imaginary men that we have in our head versus the reality of the man that is there, right? And if we don't have a cohesiveness because of the balance, then we tend to either become very masculine feeling or tend to have a dominant personality. And then that creates a different problem. And that too is culture, right? Because the same way we don't look at the ways culture affects men based on how we, like I said last week, sex produces children, it doesn't produce parents, right? Culture produces citizens, it doesn't produce, I'm trying to use a nice word because we're on the air. It doesn't produce comrades, right? It doesn't produce people who can get along together. It just produces people that belong to a place, right? It doesn't create people who are unified in the place for the development of the place. It doesn't do that, right? We tend to gather together when we want something, but when it comes to individually, we don't protect each other and we don't hold up each other the same way as when somebody from St. Kitts wins the Olympics, then everybody's a Kittian. If somebody wins football, everybody's a Kittian. But when you have the next door neighbor around the corner who is getting beat or who is having a problem, we talk about them, but we're not Kittians or Crucians or Jamaicans or any other Caribbean island at that moment. And that is the moment that we need to be, right? And so it's finding a way for us to recognize that we're not in competition with each other, like how, culture has set up for us to be. We were set up to be divided so that we don't excel. And if we're going to excel, we have to become comrades. We have to become people that work together as a team, as a unit. And if we can't do that, then we shouldn't, especially when it comes to relationships, because the breakdown in relationships where you have a lot of people, this is going to sound very weird, but Lavi, you know me, and, you have me on your show, so you know me.
Stick a pin. You're on the Real Talk with Lavi. We're keeping it real.
There you go. So, a lot of times we get into this, into these things where we tend to start to judge people based on our own hurts, right? not on the situation, but based on our own hurt. You know, one of the saddest things as a counselor for me is to see somebody that's in a domestic violence relationship that thinks they're in a relationship with the person that they're with, but they're in a relationship with their ex, which is why the relationship isn't working, right? Goes back to how we mix up the difference between sex and intimacy, right? We don't talk about the fact that Caribbean boys get raped more than everybody else, because to be a man, you have to have sex with somebody. If you're a teenager and you're having sex with an adult, you've been raped. It affects how you see a relationship. And then you become bad men because you can't connect the two. You understand? And so a lot of things in our culture starts to create this want and this need to be somebody else because we weren't allowed to be ourselves to begin with. And that's where the damage comes in. And then there's a depression that starts. And then there's all the anger that comes up and all the results of all the hurt from the misunderstanding. And then you end up with a community that we have where we have really people who can be great people being bad people because they don't make the connection.
That is so true. Listen, Shelley, I feel that we don't really have enough of this conversation on air. And, you know, a lot of things that I feel that if we really, you know, go out the way to have like positive platforms and, you know, try and encourage others to come on the show. And this is why anyone that I, you know, invite to come on this show, it gives me nothing but utmost gratitude and thankful appreciation to make sure that when whoever is on, they are comfortable. I do not want no one to be on this show and making them feel uncomfortable. So it's about sharing the information and having a discussion. Andre, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I agree with everything she said in terms of you tend to form, and you know, going back to the topic we're talking about, the culture, your perspectives on life, your worldview is formed by the culture, by your environment for the most parts, and the environment you grew up in. If you or you're exposed to, if you are exposed to one way of thinking, and that is why, for example, you would have situations, and it happens right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, unfortunately, where if you're in a gang in one community, one side of Bastyr, you can't go to the other side of Bastyr, despite the fact that Bastyr is a very small town, very small city. So, but again, it's all about perspectives. You have people who have never left, and I'm not speaking specifically here, but you know, even in a country like the United States, a big country like the United States, you have people who have never left their zip code. So all they know is the circumstances around what they live, and so they believe life is like that. They see life from that worldview. To Dr. Shelley's point about the Caribbean, you know, being such a diverse, even though we're black people, we can't necessarily relate totally to what
to each other,
Africa, to each other, one to begin with, and even African Americans who are living in the United States, and then don't even talk about you know, black people from Africa who are on the continent of Africa. They have a totally different experience as well, and a totally different perspective. So your environment has a lot to do with it, and that is why it is so important, especially in this information age, to sort of expose yourself to other cultures and other viewpoints and perspectives, because it will give us a more rounded view. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to change your perspective per se, or what you believe in, or your principles or values, but you at least understand what, or have some form of understanding what other people experience on another viewpoint other than your own. So you could still hold on to your values.
But to me, like, you know, from slavery, we were like taught to be like this, and we never seem to like elevate our minds. You know, slavery taught us segregation amongst ourselves. You know, the colored against the darker skin, and you know.
Right, and I'm gonna put my little 2 cents in, because tonight I'm just gonna just lay back and watch you guys listen, get some knowledge in here. You know, I've always been hearing about slavery this and slavery that. And it is there, it's a fact. Yeah. But we also have to dwell on the positive and, you know, teach ourselves, get the information, you know, and not basically focusing so much on the miseducation, but to educate ourselves. And I see, for instance, if you notice, I recognize as a cosmetologist, it's all about beauty and looking all beautiful. Yeah. And because I am I consider myself a conscious woman. I am thankful that I was able to be able to embrace myself in that image. Otherwise, I would be lost today and I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So it is really more important than just your profession in terms of how good you are and how beautiful you look, but it's basically being in tune and being true to yourself and recognize that we are in the earth. You know what I mean? We are in earth, and that is why anybody come and tell me, Andre, oh, Lavi, you're the best and whatever. Yeah, they swell your head, but I always remain on grounds. Shelly,
Yes.
I would like to, seeing that you're on here with us tonight as not just the crisis counselor, but I'm going to ask you something because I feel like it is very important to have platforms like this, I said, to help educate not just us, but to share the information so that the younger generation, the youths, can get some of it. And in order for the youths to get it, they have to get the knowledge from us as adults, the elders. And how is your take when it comes to women have to always tell themselves that they have to look a particular way, not just for themselves, but for a man? How does that affect mental health? Or do you think that that can have any effect on mental health?
Well, it can, because if you have to wait for someone to tell you how to look, then that starts with you at the bottom of self-esteem, right? Because who you are should be based on yourself. Like I think I said it last week, is something that I say very, very often. Other people's opinions is not for validation or confirmation of who you are. It's for information about them. So your mental health is going to be affected if you believe that only what somebody else says about you is true, right? But then that goes back to culture, where we allowed other people to define who we are. I remember when I was much younger, I was always told, if you don't become a doctor or a lawyer, you really haven't become successful, right? So any other, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief kind of story, right? If you weren't in those professions outside of yourself, we didn't talk about the carpenters were good people, but they weren't necessarily somebody that you aspired to be. They were just people that could do stuff, right? And so from a very young age, we were all pushed into this. You have to do this, right? You have to look this way. We change the way we look based on what we see, because we were never taught that we of ourselves, especially as young women, for some strange unknown reason, we were underneath the bottom of the barrel for a very long time. We're just starting to kind of come out and, get out of the barrel, get out of the box, starting to look at life differently and paying attention to who we are as women. Even when you're growing up, you're told, if you don't have a baby, you're not a whole complete woman. If you don't have a man, you're not a complete woman. In order for you to get, to be a real woman, you had to have these certain things. And that's something that we were taught. You know what I mean? We were taught that we weren't whole without having additions outside of ourselves. And so learning now that I can be a complete person outside of somebody else is a very hard thing to swallow, right? It's a complete reset of your mindset in order for you to be able to understand that you're okay being you, and that is okay, right? For you to just be you, because it's not something that we were taught. And not only were we not taught it, when we start to become that kind of a person, there's a lashback. Well, who she thinks she be? She thinks she better than everybody else. Why is she acting so? You know what I mean? That's what tends to happen.
And Shirley, let me add this. Oh, she playing white.
That too. You know what I mean? That too. All kind of things happen when you start to come into yourself, because it's not something that we were taught. And people become very uncomfortable with the unknown, right? And so the one unknown thing that we have, especially as women in the Caribbean, is that we didn't know ourselves. It takes us a long time to realize the benefits of who we are, the strengths that we have as a woman, the strengths that we have as a person, how we add to the community, how we add to society. We were raised with gender roles, We were raised with titled roles, all of those things that we were raised with. And so when we don't fit in, then we feel like we are less than. And being less than then leads to mental health, because now I'm depressed because I don't fit, right? I can't fit into this because I'm not good enough or I'm not enough. And then so I see somebody on the TV and a lot of people like how that person looks. So I feel if I look like that person, maybe people will be more accepting of me. Because unfortunately, acceptance is something that, even in children want to be loved, right? And we grow up and everybody wants to be accepted. You don't want to be the black sheep. You don't want to be the outside person. You don't want to be the person people make fun of and bully and, chat about because you're different. You don't want to be different. We've never learned to embrace being different. And so it becomes very, very hard. So we try to recreate ourselves from who we are supposed to be somebody else, to want to be accepted, which doesn't work because you really can't be anybody but you, and that affects our relationships and it affects how our culture is developing, because then, we miss the truth of the persons in the community, and we miss the benefit of the talents that that person has, because then they're uncomfortable with their own talents because it may be different from somebody else's.
All right, you're listening to the Real Talk with Lovely Lavish Lavi. Our guest tonight is none other than Shalene Gumbs down there in St. Croix, Virgin Islands, and she's joining us via Zoom, and she is a professional crisis counselor. If you're just joining us and you want to call in to ask the specialist, ask Andre, we have take advantage of it. We have some great people in here that can help you with whatever question that you want relating to how culture and relationship affect our mental health. The number to call is 466-0989, 666-0989, 762-0989. And those out there in the international, US and Canada, 718-285-6984. And in England or in UK is 033-344-0065. I will repeat quickly. For those of you in America and Canada, 718-285-6984. UK 033-344-0065. And of course in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the Caribbean, Leeward and Windward Island, 466, or let me say 869-466-0989, 869-662-0989, and 869-762-0989. And believe it or not, we have a lot of people across the Caribbean. I got a message from someone in Canada, and he said he was on a train, and someone tell him, they was from Antigua, and I think St. Vincent, and he literally let them know that they're in tune. They come across Real Talk with Lavi on social media. So, it's not even just about me, like I said, but I just feel blessed to know that we can create a positive forum like this, to reach the people. This is the only way we can help build our people, both men and women, wherever you are. Mabo?
Like this is the fact that she said, but then what I wanted to ask about, peer pressure in schools, between, both boys and girls.
Peer pressure is something that happens, unfortunately, because of, what I was talking about, acceptance. We were taught that we were supposed to be accepted by everybody.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that is never going to happen, right? But there was such a push as to you have to be everybody's friend, or you have to put yourself in a place where you get along with everybody, that being different was really talked about, right? And talked about really badly. If you were quiet, there was a problem with you. If you were smart, there was a problem with you. If you didn't really want to be around people, there was a problem with you. And so, in order for us to fit in, we go through these changes where, people, start to tell you, oh, you should do this, oh, you should do that. And if you don't do this, then, you can't be my friend. And we do, it happens. I mean, it happens with big people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't dress this way, and if your hair is not that way, then I don't really want to associate with you. Strangely enough, even as professionals, a lot of times, depending on the way you're dressed, a lot of people determine whether or not you're intelligent or not, which happens to me a lot because I don't like to dress up. I have a big problem with that. I really, really do. My head always tight because I don't like to comb my hair. I know Lavi's a cosmetologist, but that's besides the point, right? And so I found that wrapping my head is more comfortable for me, right? But then most people are like, oh, and I don't like to wear a suit because the place is hot, right? I have reasons why I don't do it. But if you don't dress a certain way, then people don't associate you with a certain level of professionalism. That doesn't mean I'm not a professional, because the professionalism isn't in the way I look, it's in the words that come out of my mouth, right? It's what's in my head. But if you don't take time to talk to me, then you'd never know, right? And so unfortunately, because even from childhood, we were taught you need to look a certain way.
Jacket and tie.
Jacket and tie. Can you imagine jacket and tie in 95 degrees outside now? What we doing? Really and truly. Ain't nobody ever thought about that?
Yes.
We don't think about these things. We don't think about the fact that I'm not going to perform well because I'm hot and uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But we get into other people's ideas of who we're supposed to be. And so then, because we were raised that way, that's the reason why peer pressure has that much impact on who we are. And then when you start pulling away, that, oh, she thinks she don't want to talk to people. What happened to she? She must be retarded. Why is she acting like that? And we start to use hurtful words, right?
Yes.
And we become very bullying because people don't appear the way we think they should appear based on an image that was not our own to begin with.
That is true. Shelley, we have a call coming in.
Okay, no problem.
Good evening, caller.
Good night, Lavi. Good night.
Good night.
And good night, Mabo.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Shelly, good night.
Good night.
I like your response. I like you, everything you really say about we human beings on our own, because men and women. Let me tell you something, Shelly. You know what caused a lot of race, especially race of people? You know what they kill us? Pride. Pride kill us. Let me tell you something. We don't tell ourselves that we can't end up this way, or we can't end up that way. If we only live by the Bible word, Shelly, you know that we wouldn't find so much difficulties in life. We wouldn't find so much difficulties in life. Things can happen. You could be up there one day, and tomorrow you're down there. And a lot of us feel like that. I can't end up like she. I can't end up like he. And he can't end up like she. And this is a killing us, Before we watch and analyze life and see different things how people end up in life. Because we got to learn from mistakes we see others make,
You better believe that.
We got to learn from mistakes we see others make. And if we, as a race, especially our black race, you find a white man and a white woman as a tourist come in your country, you might think a husband and wife they be. They're just friends, kissing one another and doing one another, all kind of thing, and just good friends. And maybe not just social friends, not intimate friends. And we don't live that we black people don't live that way. We don't live that way. If we give you something, tomorrow we're looking for something. And all these things.
He's right.
I don't see it in the race of the white people, the white Caucasian people then. We got to learn. We got to watch people and learn and set example towards our children, our grandchildren, or whatever. We got to learn, man. We got to learn. You see. How you say with that? A lot of young girls never tune into this program and listen to this program tonight. Because Shirley, you're well informative, I tell you. You're doing a good job.
Thank
And
you
let
so
you keep
much.
it up. The program getting there.
It is.
I will get somebody a chance if they want to get in.
Culture
you know,
before
to say
you
something.
culture before you go. The program.
Politics.
This is politics.
Yeah.
Mr. Politics. Before you go,
Yes.
we ain't just getting there. No, we done there. Just kidding. Have a wonderful night and thanks for calling. Okay.
All right then, okay, man, yeah.
Alrighty. Shelly, you hear when he touch on what is killing us? Pride. What is your take on that?
It's true. Because, it goes back to the peer pressure thing. Pride is how we want to appear to other people. It's the original sin. So he was very right. I know people say disobedience was the original sin, but pride was the original sin. That's why Lucifer got kicked out of heaven, right? Because of wanting to look like you and be more than we are. But we have to be true to ourselves, right? And if you can't be true to yourself, void of everybody else's version of you, and that's a question that I challenge people with in counseling, in my mentorship program, when I do business consulting, in everything. It's something that I challenge people with a lot. Who are you outside of who people told you that you should be, right? And are you comfortable being the person that you want to be if nobody else would be okay with you, right? Because that is the question that now becomes, how comfortable are you with the real you? And it's impossible for a lot of people to answer it sometimes because they've really never thought about it. Some people don't even know what their favorite color is. Their favorite color is based on the people that are around them. Like, I like black because everybody else like black. But then you see them wearing all blue clothes. But they haven't associated the fact that they actually like blue and not black, right? I know mine is green, right? Because I actually thought about it. I'm like, why do I like green? I like green because green is riches, growth, wealth, the earth, and I literally like green.
Well, green
And
is
so
my
power color.
Green is my color now. Just because you said that.
Which goes back to exactly what I just said.
I just say, yeah.
That's my point.
How other people influence the way we think, right? And so, in order for us to be comfortable with ourselves, the honesty of who we are has to be that I'm okay not being like everybody else, right? And so that's apart from counseling and my mentorship program, that is one of the things that I strive to do, to help people to become self-sufficient and have self-efficacy based on their own skills and who they are as people, what their personality is like, the way they communicate, the way they talk, the words that they use, how the words that they use, make sense to them, how language affects how they develop, how language affects how they relate to people, and how much of somebody else's words impacts the way they create and make decisions. Because a lot of people make decisions based on what other people have told them, not on their own reality or their own truth.
Let me say this number. There's some people online. They're asking what's the U.S. number for here. The number to call. Those that are out in U.S. and Canada. 718-285-6984. That's 718-285-6984. It is 8:44. Shelly?
We're running out of time as usual.
No, but you're going to go all the way down to me. What I want to ask is so much of things I want to ask you. One of the things I must highlight in the Virgin Islands, especially because you are living down there in the Virgin Islands, one of the things that I realize, for those of you that don't know of the Virgin Islands, I realize that it is a strong hold or culture for, should I say, Rastafarians or persons that want to wear their hair anyway. Anyhow, like you have the guys, they have their hair plait, they have their hair dreads, and no one really stigmatizing them like that. And I would always say, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can correct me, but as Black people in the Caribbean, and I think I want to say maybe the entire world, I see the Virgin Islands is one of the places where a Black man and Black woman can basically embrace their identity. It's actually acceptance, and unlike what I'm seeing in the, I would say more or less the British islands, where Rastafarian or Rastafarian children, it always had a stigma. And I see something like that in Jamaica as well. I mean, you look at Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and those people, you know, they make it all the way up to the top. I mean, of late, you see the Bob Marley music. And I feel like as Black people, we're the ones supposed to be embracing our people. There's a lot of Black people even would scorn and look down, as you said, on other Black people because they don't look the way how they want them to look. Rastafarian, they look down at them. They look down at women that basically depicting the look of just a Rasta woman, you know, and that's the natural identity. And then you have other cultures will look at you and like they gravitate and they love that. And when I look, I'm going to say something, you guys could correct me, but when I look even in vegan, I would say that stem from the Rastafarian culture. And now you see in all different ethnicities that are tapping in on the Rastafarian food that we call like health conscious and health care. You know, all those kind of, you want to help me? Because I'm getting kind of passionate with this.
Yes, I think a lot of what, when it comes to diet in particular, I mean, the Rastafarians have been leading that journey for a long time and still is. But to the earlier point that you raised about, you know, whether people, you know, look down on people of Rastafarian, it actually still exists right across the Caribbean. And sadly in Jamaica, where Rastafarianism originated from. It's just in recent years, you would say that some aspects of Rasta has been embraced. In fact, when the Bob Marley movie came out, it premiered in Jamaica in February. And I remember hearing, well, a few commentators were saying that, you know, all the people who were going to see the movie at the premiere, there was a time a few years ago, a couple of decades ago, when, you know, Rastas generally were not appreciated. They were not, they were not seen highly. And yet there were now people many decades later now going to see this Bob Marley movie of you know, a Rasta who in his time was not appreciated, was not embraced. And now the same people who were not embracing them are now showing up to see the movie, celebrating Rastafarianism and celebrating Bob Marley.
You know, that came from, you know, the colonial teaching. You know, Rasta were looked down on like they were like nobody. Colonial masters.
Well, someone, and let me recognize Mr. C.G. Walwyn. He was the what you call that?
Commissioner.
The Commissioner of Police right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and also I think the Deputy Commissioner down there in the Virgin Islands. And he's saying that we have dreadlocks police officers in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
I am seeing there's a lot of officers on the line as well. And I want to repeat this again, what Mr. C.G. Walwyn, that's the former Commissioner of Police. He's on the live here with us, and he was also the former deputy Commissioner of Police down in the Virgin Islands. And he's saying we have dreadlocks police officers in the Virgin Islands. When are we going to see this here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
No.
Go ahead.
No, you see, you may say dreadlocks, right? But then most of the police don't, they still shave. So you still don't have that, you know.
No, Mabo, I'm gonna tell you this here, right? I'm not disagreeing. I hate to be on a program where we have to be debating, but I want to enlighten you with this.
I agree. I agree with what you said.
No, yes, but I want to enlighten you on this one, right? in the Virgin Island, ain't just about no shave and whatever, because I mean, it's all about being well kept. However, there's no stigma when it comes to the Virgin Islands. And I would always say, if anyone has a chance to go to the Virgin Islands, Andre, I was raised there in the Virgin Islands. And I can tell you, the guys, the boys, they want to wear the plait hair, they plait their hair. They want to wear the dreadlocks, they dread the hair. And any profession, they actually, Shirley, maybe you can highlight me on the senator in St. Croix that is from St. Kitts, that, he won as a senator down there with his dreadlocks. And I really
he's
feel...
He's not a senator anymore, but he was the Commissioner of Agriculture as well, Positive Nelson.
Positive Nelson, he's from St. Kitts and Nevis. And
the public defender also has locks.
Exactly. And on the Real Talk, this is black, is it black or women's month, right? I am blessed to know that I have this, like I said, this program, because this is where we can help make change and come out of this stigma where we feel that if you're not a permanent secretary, you're not a prime minister, you're not a lawyer, you're not a doctor, you're not all those kind of elite white collar, you cannot be the most popular, influential person right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And they're really promoting, they're stigmatizing, and they're spreading false rumor, because they're basically, I would say, kind of limiting our people, Andre. You understand? Because you have people that are instrumental in many ways. Some of them don't even have a job. Back in the days, you have parents that never go to work. So you're going to tell me because they didn't go to work, there wasn't nobody, they run the homes.
Yeah.
The man was a breadwinner. Some of these men never even go to pay a bill. The woman paying these bills. And until we right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we got to come outside of this box, this crab and barrel mentality, and recognize people for who they are. Because at the end of the day, when we are promoting people and saying that they are the most influential, we need to know, besides someone's profession, are they really instrumental in the job? You understand? Are they being leaders? Are they basically being able to make change in those departments? Or are they just doing a job, Andre?
Yeah. Yeah. That is something that I think, and we were having this discussion off air before the show started about persons. There's one thing to hold a position or have a position. It's another thing to be influential in that position and making a positive difference. Not just having a position for position's sake. But I also want to go back to the point also on the dreadlocks. And you are so right that the way we view not just even Rastas, but just ourselves as people, as black people, has a lot to do with how we were raised, and has a lot also to do with the colonial mindset, as you point out. Because we have this tendency sometimes to think that, and we criticize ourselves a lot, and some of the criticisms are legitimate, but at the same time, I think we call on ourselves, so to speak, a lot as people of African descent. So we would say, well, there's a play that I read in school called Old Story Time. And it was a story about a mother, single mother, raised her son to become, and go back to what Michelle was saying earlier about, parents always want you to be a lawyer or a doctor because they feel that that's the most accomplished profession. So she wanted her son to be a doctor. But she also wanted her son to marry a light-skinned woman because she felt that, and her mindset was, and this came up a lot in the play, anything black no good. So
accepted.
Right. So she didn't accept herself for her skin color, and she didn't accept her son being with somebody who wasn't of that same, because she felt that was part of the upward mobility for her for her son to have. So that is in a reflection of a lot of us in terms of how we see ourselves, that we don't see ourselves in a high sense. So, we always feel like we have to be someone else, become someone else, do something else, and just look down on our own identity. And I think, going back to what you were saying also to Lavi, that a lot of our laws need to change because a lot of it has been inherited from
Colonial masters.
colonial masters. We didn't change them, and a lot of them, I think, also reflect on how they saw us, and we didn't make any efforts to change them. We haven't made any efforts to change many of them, and so we just adopt the laws wholesale. Even England themselves, England has changed a lot of its laws. The same laws that we inherited from them.
Yeah, but they're trained and we still
And we're still stuck with them. So, we have a lot of work to do when it comes to that.
We surely do. And you know what is so disappointed? Yes, you know what is so disappointing and a failure to our black people, our black race? In the Caribbean, we basically have black leaders, and no one has really, tapped in to go in and pass these things to basically allow black people to be themselves and be their own identity. Shelly, we just have like 2 minutes before we wrap up.
Yeah, the conversation is interesting, because it goes back to, are you willing to be true to yourself, right? I mean, that literally is it. How do you view people when you look at success, right? I mean, like, honestly, if you see a person, when you see someone, I mean, one of the things that, here in the Virgin Islands, we have this guy, I mean, and he was a homeless guy for a while. He was, addicted to drugs and stuff like that. And so my mother complains about me all the time because I say hello to everybody. And that's because I think people need to know that they're not invisible. Feeling that you're invisible and nobody's paying attention to you hurts. And so because of that, I tend to say hello to everybody that I see. I make sure I smile, look them in the eye and, say, hey, how you doing, morning, afternoon, whatever the thing may be. And there was this one young man here. CG is my big brother, adopted, but my big brother anyway. And so he probably would know who I'm talking about after I tell you the story. But I would talk to this guy and we would talk, and he was so well spoken, but like I said, he was homeless, right? And so one day I said to him, how did you get there? And he said, well, I used to play for Steel Pulse and I was doing something I wasn't supposed to do and they left me. And so I got stuck. I thought he was joking. He said, I used to play the keyboard. I thought he was joking. He's like, I wasn't the main keyboard player, but on this trip I was. And I still thought he was joking. I said, all right, come, let me get you a piano. And lo and behold, he was a master musician. You know what I mean? But when you look at people, you never know what's in them. And because we have this stigma of what we're supposed to look like, and so it's a question to challenge, what does success look like for us personally? Do we talk to any and everybody? Because everybody has a story. I don't remember which one of you was saying before. We don't realize that everybody is one trauma away from being mentally ill, one rage away from being a murderer and in jail, and one natural disaster from being homeless.
30
and
seconds.
If we keep that in mind,
30 seconds.
then we will be fine.
30 seconds.
I'm finished.
Shelly? I hate saying this, but we're on a time. Hopefully we're going to get more.
It's fine.
It was a pleasure having you here tonight. If you want to give your final words, your thoughts. You got 1 minute.
Those were my final words. Remember that everyone is one trauma away from being mentally ill, one rage away from being a murderer, and one natural disaster from being homeless. We have to pay attention to everybody around us. Don't be a bystander and be true to yourself. Judge your own success and not what you think it's supposed to look like in others. That'll make the place a whole lot better.
I want to thank you so much for being able to make it, tonight. I'm going to say another night.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we really appreciate you. And, this journey with us is not, it's not finished. So I'll be seeing you soon. And have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Before I leave, I got to, take some time out. And someone is saying we need to start changing the names of the street, parishes, building, and our birth name. Someone said, Lavi, we need the show to be 1 hour and 30 minutes. Someone said there should be additional time on these educational topics. Y'all sponsor the show. Someone said Rastafarian originated in Ethiopia, the continent of Africa. And it's so much, folks, I can't read. But you know what? 1 hour, short and sweet. So you know when we ready to go for the 2 hours, we are ready. Andre?
Yes, well, it was a pleasure being here. The topic was enriching. I agree. The time is short, so we can't get to go into a lot of things, but it was a pleasure.
Nice. Thank you for coming. Mabo?
Yeah, same for me, you know. Yeah, on your sentiments. Same.
All
I
right.
express the same.
Okay, so next week, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have an open discussion, and Andre is going to be back next week along with Jamie. We might be having Naima Hazel. I'm going to, be bold and let you guys know the PS, Naima Hazel. Real Talk is bringing on, we are inclusive. What do you want to say, Andre? Inclusion.
Inclusive.
Inclusive right here on the Real Talk. Next week, open discussion, and we're just going to continue the vibes. Big deal with lovely, lavish Lavi. Have a wonderful evening.